Another episode of Bad Runners Take with my friend Brian Peterson, goes by Wolf Runner. We have talked, I would say maybe even lamented is a strong word, but we're both coming from a background of being really competitive in the areas that we like growing up, playing sports and still enjoying sports. And we think, hey, some of this like really healthy competitive spirit, love to see more of it in trail. And all of a sudden, I come to find that it's kind of been right under our noses this whole time in this Golden Trail World Series. It came on my radar mainly because Brian was like, hey, did you see the finish at the Golden Trail World Series at Mammoth? And I said, I don't think so. Or like it didn't stick out necessarily. And he sent it to me. I was like, oh, yeah, I saw that. I didn't even think twice. That looked amazing. This guy was trying to pass this other guy, and it was sort of it ended up being this controversial thing, but I didn't even think of it as controversial enough to where it stuck with me. I just thought, oh, that's cool. I love seeing that, like two people really wanting the win. That was great. And you're like, no, this has actually been, a bigger deal than you think. And so let's look into it. So I looked into it and I thought, oh my gosh, right under our noses has been this really cool Golden Trail World Series. I've sort of just not looked at it because it didn't make sense to me intuitively at the beginning. And so I just have always glazed over it, a brief deep dive. And I just think, hey, this is sort of what I'm here for on some levels. I've been looking for this. Before I get too much further, Brian, welcome. Can you explain the finish that was a bit controversial for those who aren't caught up?
Yeah, I was watching that event live. So, one of the things about the Golden Trail World Series that we'll get into is just how well they produce a live presentation of trail running. And so, yeah, I was watching it just under 2 hours for the elite men to finish. And, you could see this battle brewing basically at the summit where they peak out at the top of the ski resort at 11,000 feet. And then they just, release this incredible, thrust down these technical trails at paces that we couldn't even fathom on a track with spikes on. So, yeah, you're glued to the screen, you're watching it, they're descending, guys are putting moves on each other, neither can break the other one. They keep getting closer and closer to the ski town, you're closing in on 5K, and they're just still blasting these trails, and exactly what you wanted to have happen as it was unplaying is exactly what did happen. So you get into the actual like ski town itself, like, the paved streets, and you've got, this big tourist, congregation area, and they're just blasting. They've given it everything they can. VO2 max, foot to the pedal for 2 hours. And there's absolutely not an ounce of wanting to hold hands across this finish line. These guys are all about that finish. And it's basically, so as it is, it's a ski town. So you've got like a tourist area, shops, restaurants, right? And so that's where they have the finish line at. And it's kind of, it's not a straight line path. And so there's, a little bit of winds and turns, a few staircases. And as they get inside of the closing, like 100 yards, 50 yards even, the challenger, the second place guy, Patrick Kipnego, he's trying to make a pass on the right-hand side of Alacine. Alacine holds his line just slightly veering to the right to pinch him off, because there's this little bend where like a natural planter box or something is coming out, and so he just holds his line. Kipnego has to break stride. They get a little bit of elbow, a little rubbing, nothing dramatic or unsportsmanlike, and Alacine ends up, holding off Kipnego. So you're going to have to see it if you haven't. Do yourself a favor. Golden Trail Series has it edited. They've got highlights of this finish. It's incredible. But you always run to the comment section to see what's going on. And in real time, they were talking about, it's going to be a protest. Kipnego thought that this was an unfair contact made, that he, basically interceded and prevented him from making the pass. But Golden Trail Series upheld the finish, and the comment sections just were probably 50-50, I would think. Some saying that it was an illegal move, the contact wasn't warranted. Others saying, hey, if you've ever ran cross country, you understand you're entitled to your line, you can hold your position. I think the fact that it's making our podcast a topic just shows how thrilling it was. And the fact you can get a 50-50 audience on anything tells you you're doing something right.
Okay, so some insider language there that I can pick up from context clues, but
right.
Help me understand that. because that was what I had read. It was like, okay, he'd held his line.
Right.
Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so just if you were to draw like a line from where his intended path would be, if you were, you know what I mean, like his anticipated path, right? So if you were to draw that dotted line of where his body positioning and natural straight line would have been, that's where he held his path. He didn't make some sort of hard veer to the right in an unnatural way to box him out. He did sort of with his upper body, lean a little bit into that right angle, kind of anticipating the contact from his competitor. His competitor wasn't going, by without contact either. So they both kind of met, rubbed elbows and shoulders above the body, nothing below to intentionally trip somebody. And yeah, it was so good.
Yeah, because I wasn't thinking about the rules. I didn't know the rules. This was a vague league. I don't know if you call this a league, but this Golden Trail World Series was vague. Saw it, amazing, move on. What it appealed to me in is just this fire for them to win. Like it just,
right.
To me, I so naturally think that way. Like it's why I'm so self-deprecating about my ultra abilities, is because I would rather be winning these things, and because I'm not, I make fun of myself, as you might have in Little League or something like that. I'm the one making fun of me. It's fine.
Right.
So I saw it and was man, that's great. I was fired up by it. I didn't even cross my mind, like, what's the rules? Is that etiquette? Is that good? After you watched it in real time and then we're watching the replay or however they did it, I mean, was your read initially that it was all good and fair?
Yeah. I thought it was fine. It would take quite a bit. I mean, again, we're running on a ski resort. We're running up a mountain. Like what we're doing isn't polished and clean, and I don't want to suck out all of the just fierce, competition, and make this be like, well, as we approach now this, commercialized ski lodge, we're going to all of a sudden forget that we ran up and down a mountain, and we're going to act like this is track and field or something, right? Like this is a raw course. It's a bbit contrived to have it finish in the ski lodge itself, but I get it because it's good for spectators and creating a buzz at the town. But like, yeah, it's going to be rubbing. There's going to be, some. This is exactly what you want. I mean, I'm
yes.
glad that it was
100%.
A bang bang finish rather than him kind of coasting in and kissing babies and waving to his fans type thing. So, and then like when we contrasted it, right, like my immediate thing was like, my God, like there was never a hesitation that these guys were going to hold hands. Like this is trail running, but it's an entirely different sport, within trail running.
Yeah. So I had Tim Tollefson on the podcast at one point, and we were talking about, hey, this is great, Mammoth Trail Fest. It's growing. This is awesome. And he said, yeah, one of them is Golden Trail Race. And again, I'm familiar with it, but never enough to like understand what that even means. And where I feel silly is that on this other hand, I've been saying, hey, I want to see some spirit of competition. I want to see what we just described there. I'm looking for that. And here it is. But it didn't register with me. And so I just wonder how many people out there it doesn't register exactly what this thing is, this Golden Trail World Series, and why this is the place to go if you're looking for some of that competition on the trail, these types of finishes and this level of intensity. So let's back up and talk about what this is. How would you like synthesize Golden Trail World Series? What is it?
Yeah, so I mean, this is full disclosure. Like, I'm not a fanboy of the Golden Trail World Series. I, haven't followed the series itself in previous years. It's been on the radar, but certainly, well off the main ripple of the radar, if you will say, right? Like, I think the reason why it hasn't registered a lot, with guys like us is just confirmation bias. We want to believe that the best ultra runners are the Americans. And when you look at Golden Trail World Series, it's clear and obvious that they are not. Now, some of our well-known athletes, they don't participate in the Golden Trail Series, which we'll get into. But yeah, so it takes a little bit of effort to kind of forget, the names and the lore that you've kind of learned coming into the sport and just take on this sport fresh and learn new names and characters and nicknames. And I mean, but that's fun. It's been cool. I'm excited now for next year that, I've kind of baptized myself into the trail series and understand kind of the terminology and how the setup of it is. So yeah, I mean, to get into it, basically it started in 2018. So it's got some runway. It's not a new thing. It's got a presenting sponsor. So Golden Trail Series itself is presented by Salomon. And in its early days, it was very Salomon heavy with the athletes that ran it. So again, kind of what we've talked about on this podcast before.
That makes sense.
The brands are driving where athletes race. And so when Salomon was probably getting this off the ground, there was a high incentive for Salomon-sponsored athletes to participate in the Salomon branded race series. And so 2018 goes by, 2019, 2020 pandemic year was pretty cool. They had like a pivot with a kind of a 4-stage race championship. So even during the pandemic, this series was able to put on a championship. Wow. That's the only year that Jim Walmsley, I think, participated in the Golden Trail Series itself, at the championship level. But essentially how it breaks down now, and I was coming up with, what's the best way to articulate this to the audience, to you. And if you're familiar with golf, familiar with NASCAR, right, these other like solo competitor sports, they all have kind of a feeder league, right? You got the Xfinity Tour in NASCAR, kind of where guys can cut their teeth and try and make it to the big show. You've got, I don't even know what they call it now in the PGA Tour, but they've got a sub tour where if you get enough wins, accumulate enough points, you're going to qualify for your tour card and can play with the PGA guys the next year. Same thing here. They've got a Golden Trail National Series that takes place simultaneously as the World Series events. Okay, you've got 14 countries that have this trail national series going on.
Amazing.
And the United States is one of them. And you can basically finish in the top 2 of your national series to then gain invite to the World Series the next year.
Wow.
And so it's got this awesome kind of format where you can follow the up-and-coming guys who are trying to get onto the scene the following year, and then you can also follow the main World Series event that's going on at the same time. So what do you think about that?
That's incredible. I had no idea. Okay, so then this far-reaching, you've got the minor leagues.
Right.
They're in America. I think that... Okay, the only reason I know this name in Golden Trail, Sophia Lockley, is because she went to the University of Utah, and she's on the ski team at the University of Utah, and I believe she won last year, the women's. I think that's true.
Sophia Lockley did. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, but beyond that, I mean, I think I see other names that I've heard in there. I don't just know much about him. Remy Bonnet, I believe. Correct. I saw that name on there.
Yep.
But like you said, the bias piece. Well, is it really that great if Jim's not running it? Is it really that great if Courtney's not doing it? And the answer, I mean, that I'm coming across is, yeah, it is. And it just shows in maybe another specialty, because by and large, these are, I mean, I know the Mammoth one's 26K. Like, these are shorter distances, right? These are speedy distances.
Yeah. So I was going to dive into that as far as kind of what the average makeup of the Golden Trail Series race looks like.
Yeah, please do.
Right. So you've got the national series that takes place. And again, I appreciate that, because their whole intent is that if you basically, if you can't afford to travel, you don't have sponsorship money, they're still providing local athletes with opportunities to compete. And so what you then have is the Golden Trail World Series. And these are 8 events that break down for the Golden Trail World Series. It goes Japan, China, Spain, France, Switzerland, Poland, and 2 in the USA. So they strategically do it to where, travel becomes easier during this season. They provide travel accommodation. They cover expenses for travel and hotel lodging for athletes who are in the top 30 for the Golden Trail World Series. So it's pretty cool. They got something going on there where they're giving something back to these professional athletes to participate and bring them into the events. So the distances range. You've got 21K is the shortest. So we're a U.S. podcast. That's 13 miles. And then you've got 42K, which is your typical marathon distance. So 26 miles. Very vert heavy. So you've got like 1,300 meters to 2,700 meters, which ranges out 4,200 feet to almost 9,000 feet a gain.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, when you're looking at these things, they may pack a punch, or they may be short in distance, but they definitely pack a punch in their vertical ascent. And it makes sense. They're all basically taking place on, in America, in ski resorts like Mammoth. Other places, you know, they've just got the terrain out there that's like that. So, I mean, the way I think about them is like they're mini speed goat. 50Ks, you know, is what they are. They're intense.
Gosh. Okay. So yeah, I mean, early days, Hayden Hawks, like now you say speed goat, I think, okay, Jim Walmsley's one speed goat, Hayden's one speed goat, Sage Canaday back in the day, at least his podium there. A lot of notable fast men and women runners running speed goat. But there's still something broken to me in like thinking, associating what's happening there. Maybe it's because the Golden Trail is young. I don't know what it is, but there's still something to me that's just not like giving it the legitimacy. Like academically, I give it the legitimacy it deserves, but in my heart, I don't. And I wonder, it's the same thing with F1. Like to me, it feels like a predominantly European sport, event, whatever you want to call it. And it's hard for me to just fully grab it. Though I can watch it and kind of get excited, but I'm not buying the jersey. You know, like when I was a kid, I was buying the Texas Rangers jersey, the Dallas Cowboys jersey. I still don't feel like I don't see a path yet to that with Golden Trail World Series, like in the immediate. But I feel like it's probably just over time as this thing grows, like, and you start to get it and it makes it into the common sort of discussion and you start to see the scale of it. And this is, the prize money, all this sort of stuff. Like there's something there. And I just wonder if like in Europe, with European fans, if it's already sustained, or in America, are there pockets of it that have adopted it and are big fans of it? I mean, we have 2 races of all these other countries. It sounds like all the other countries only had 1. Something happened in America. I think, I'm sort of hitting a bunch of stuff here. I'm just kind of like pushing this along and saying, when does it become more to us than what it currently is, and why isn't it already more to us?
Yeah, I think it's just, again, because, we don't have we already have established, trail gods in the United States. We've got Courtney, we've got Jim, we've got Zach Miller, we've got Hayden Hawks, we've got the up-and-comers within our identified space, right? Like if you're running the Golden Ticket Trail Series, that is kind of what takes our attention away from things like the Golden Trail Series, right? Like we already have a format and a season, and we have, a platform for podcasters and content creators to feed us images and narratives, right? And so, again, this is a competing force for our attention, and it's unfamiliar, and our immediate, American-based bias, just it doesn't connect to our soul. But visually, when you see it, you can't help but be entertained and then kind of like begrudgingly like it at the beginning, and then kind of like, kind of be pissed off that this doesn't exist for the stuff that we're already invested into.
And that there's no connection to Western states. To your point. And maybe that's probably part of it. It's like we don't see it plugged into that ecosystem. Right. And so it falls off our radar, whereas the Golden Ticket races, those are on our radar because it's setting up that field for that race that we love.
Exactly. And so why are the names, like we mentioned, not at the Golden Trail World Series? And I would imagine it's just got to be a bunch of different factors. It started in 2018. It really probably didn't get going until after the pandemic. So, call it like, 2021, 22, 23-ish area, right? It's gaining more momentum. It's slowly moving away from the Solomon, biased or Solomon focused participation. Because now when you look at the leaderboard, I mean, the representation of brand and sponsors is very diverse. And so, again, I think it's just the guys and gals that were in that era when it started may not have had the natural skill set, or they, you can't, I should say, it's very difficult for you to train for a Golden Trail Series while simultaneously being fit enough to run Western States and UTMB. Now, obviously, the Europeans are going to start protesting that Kilian can do it. And yes, okay, that when you watch Golden Trail World Series and you see how other Americans compete within it, and then you see what Kilian can go do on some of these courses while still being able to win UTMB, it just ups the level of like respect for him.
Absolutely.
I better understand it now, seeing how far his
that's
skill set is.
Great way to put it. Because when I think about Kilian, it's like, I mean, his resume on its face, like you look at how many wins does he have and where he's racing and what's the vert like at all those. But the way that you just put it was probably the easiest way to connect the dots as we start to understand Golden Trail and that he can go to Zagama or whatever these places are that he goes to, and he wins that, and in the same calendar year wins UTMB. I think you're spot on. That is, as we start to understand those shorter distances and what that takes, we already all probably who's listening to this are kind of understanding that 100-mile distance and how crazy that is. To be ready for both in the same calendar year, you're right. That's special.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, I think again, it's probably so it's that skill set training. You have to radically change your training, just because of how shorter these races are and how much climbing focused they are. It's just entirely different. And then I think the brands are still a massive component of it. Unfortunately, is that I mean, for Hoka, I think it's going to give you more bang for your buck right now if Jim's at UTMB versus the champion of the Golden Trail World Series. So
one thing this makes me start to think of is what are there other circuits out there? So you mentioned the Golden Ticket circuit, which is the circuit that runners will dive in and out of and pick and choose their race that they think they can use to get into Western states. Another one that comes to mind is the World Trail Majors. All that looked like to me was that maybe some larger trail races around the world, all just sort of kind of banded together. I can't tell exactly why, or if that's a circuit in and of itself, or if that's just a promotional value, or if there's a competitive value.
No, so World Trail Major would be the only one that I'm all aware of at this time that has some type of defined season with a series of defined races where your top, I think, with World Trail Majors, it might be your top two results, get you into this scoring for, and then season-ending championship and winner. But World Trail Majors is still, it's his first year, so I guess we got to give him a little bit of patience with it. But I mean, they launched on the heels of the UTMB drama earlier this year, and so it felt a bit rushed that they were just trying to capitalize on maybe some of the market sympathy for wanting an alternative to UTMB, because I haven't heard much of anything afterwards. It's there. I mean, there's a social media page that you can get into, and there's information out there, but it's not like they're putting out a lot of content that's hitting my algorithm or my feed. I'm not seeing anybody that I follow or content creators really pour into the World Trail Major, so it's out there, but it's not making a noise.
I mean, like the best of the best, I don't feel like get pulled into any of these circuits. They can kind of just pick the race that they want to go do. I mean, is UTMB a de facto circuit because of what it takes to get into it? So then you're going to these, and what I mean by circuit is like, if you are in that ecosystem, you're running only that ecosystem for a defined period of time. Like Golden Trail World Series, it sounds like that's a year, or there's a season. These people probably aren't off running Speedgoat that year because that would ruin their season. And I think that maybe that's just the piece that's foreign, or the part that, is growing on me, or what I like that I haven't fully, enjoyed yet. But I mean, when you think about Jim, when you think about the biggest names, like they're above the circuit, and I wonder then there's runners beneath that need the circuit for the prize money that's in the circuit. They need it for like the career, like you said, like the top 30 people getting their expenses paid for. Like circuits feel like there's careers that can exist and they're dependent on the circuit, and then we've got these people that transcend the circuit, and there's maybe 24 of those in the world, maybe a dozen.
Yeah, and running's so crazy because, it has these types of events where they're the biggest event within the sport, but they're outside of a defined circuit. Like that's a problem for me, because in the golf analogy or in NASCAR, it's like the biggest event is that circuit's championship. Like there's not something that like the best race car drivers go and do. to prove themselves outside of a NASCAR, right? Or like the PGA Tour, like you've got the majors, and like there's nothing that you do outside of, you know, the PGA Tour and golf and the four majors to go do something. So that's a problem with our sport, I think, is like you have something like a series, you know, which just gives a fan like a season to follow and a build up to a championship, right? But like for UTMB, it's not a series that you follow. It's like once you qualify, then they go out and they run all these other, you know, ancillary races that, you know, are great, but they're just like, they're one and done. They don't build any momentum to the championship in a win-loss way or in a cumulative point way. And that's what the Golden Trail Series brings. Again, back to why we're talking about everything. The Golden Trail Series, yeah, it has this kind of like point system that you follow, and you're seeing these guys, you know, fighting basically, you know, in the top 10 to be able to accumulate points so they know that they've secured their place in the final, you know, and then in the final is when the final season top 30 is solidified. So then, you know, you've made your bones and you're good for next year. You've qualified, right? And and the other aspect of Golden Trail World Series that I wanted to pivot to is just the production value of it. Like they are putting out the best presentation of trail running. Like they go to, and Mammoth Trail Fest is the greatest example because it's kind of crazy. So Golden Trail Fest comes in and partners with Mammoth Trail Fest, which is its own event going on. Yep. And basically, I don't know what the business side of it is. I assume Golden Trail Series is, you know, giving Mammoth and Tim Tollefson, you know, bigger exposure. You know, it's allowing him to say that he's offering prize money in his race because I'm sure it's Golden Trail Series that's, you know, funding the prize money. But it's crazy because Mammoth Trail Fest has other events that are going on. And so you're seeing like Mountain Outhouse, Aravaipa presenting the live stream feed with Debo, I think, and Corinne doing the commentary like on the other races. And so you get a real live time contrast of like, what does our live stream media package look like in presenting trail running on the 50K? And then the next day, Mountain Outhouse and Free Trail shuts down the production. Golden Trail Series comes in and takes over, and they produce the presentation on the 26K. Oh my God, dude!
Was
like
it,
if it's
markedly different,
And I got to shout out our boy Troy because Troy gave me this line, so I'm not going to take any credit for it, but I love it. It's that American trail running media is being done by passionate trail runners, and Golden Trail Series is being done by professional production. You know what I mean? Like it's not basically the guys in the sport who just have a passion and want to share this with everyone. These are guys who could go out and produce a documentary for some other film, right? Like it's people who are professionals at production producing it versus passionate trail runners trying to their best to do it. And I mean, that's a markedly different result that you see.
That was always kind of my point with who's the Stephen A. Smith of trail running. The point was who is in trail running, making it happen and pushing it forward, who's never done it before in their life. They're just there because that's their gift or their skill set or their career. You know, love or hate Stephen A. Smith. That's not the point. It's the fact that he didn't play pro basketball and he's still a voice for basketball. Or Joe Buck didn't play pro baseball. He's still my favorite commentator in baseball and football. I love Joe Buck, especially when he's with Troy Aikman. So, what you're saying, I love this. And I think that's interesting. So what you're saying is they have pretty much the same gear as the Free Trail, Mountain Outpost, same sets, or are they coming in and putting up new sets or putting up new microphones? I mean, like what
everything's new
to the eye. Okay. Oh, they're packing up and going, and then the new production crews coming in and setting up shop.
Yeah. Or it's just basically built out of a different. They're not even used. You wouldn't even have known that it was the same place unless you saw like landmarks. Oh, this is the same race. It's just presented differently for me.
Okay.
So they have more e-bike cameramen. They have the drones were incredible. They have their own commentators, which, commentary isn't something that, comes through differently no matter how much you pay for it, right? So Debo and Corinne, obviously, I'm biased. I love their commentary. But the person that they have is very good at his job and does well at bringing the race, together and building momentum. He's excited about it. You know, it's a sporting commentator. So it was awesome, man.
I would attribute this somewhat. I would say a hypothesis is that if this is early, if Solomon was all over this thing early, some of the best content on YouTube for a long time, or the most consistent, maybe not always the best, but always good, was Solomon TV. Mm-hmm. And so I just wonder if that's baked into the DNA, Solomon's ability to put out a great video, and that French DNA of creativity, like high quality creativity and storytelling. I wonder if that's just what's in the DNA here of Golden Trail World Series. If that came from Solomon, regardless of where it came from, it sounds like it's there. It's just interesting to think if maybe Solomon has something to do with that.
Yeah, and I think I'll have to dive into more. There was so much for me to research and try and build a concise
snapshot
talk list here today. Right, exactly. But yeah, I think the creator of the Golden Trail series, I believe, has a journalistic background or somewhere within that media scope. So he would be an interesting person to kind of do a micro dive into the DNA of the Golden Trail World Series and see how his experience contributes to why it's markedly different here. And again, we always hear the justification or the pause on Golden Trail Series, hands down, right? It's unmarkedly better, but they have so much money, right? They have endless money. They have endless money. It's like, I don't know. We're the United States of America. I think we have a thriving economy here. I mean, the country's enormous, right? Like, I feel like if there was just the slight desire or curiosity, to do this, we could figure it out financially. Yeah. Like you've got the brands, right? I mean, like, why doesn't Hoka decide, hey, we need to come out with a Challenger series? We'll be the presenting sponsor and we'll throw some money into it, or we're going to rise up from, this kind of Challenger brand and throw a series together. Like, I can't imagine it's that much money that we're talking about, that it's just impossible to do it here with the players like Mountain Outhouse or Free Trail.
Yeah, and the number of really awesome 50Ks in America.
Right.
I don't know how well Speed Goat, since we've mentioned them already, since they're owned by UTMB, if they play well with others, but I think you've got to have the shorter distances to get 8 races. Like, if you're trying to monetize this thing, it can't just be a couple 100-milers, one at the beginning of the year, one at the end of the year, because our runners can't do that terribly consistently. But 26K to 50K, 18K to 35K, 10 of those races across America. But my head then also goes back to all these other circuits, all these other places. Like, if someone's bucket list this year is the main event, UTMB, they've got to run these other events to get their stones. And so then, the question is how do you get the people to choose yours when there's so many? I mean, I think a little bit also when you were talking earlier of NFL was the American League was playing and the National League was playing, then eventually they came together as one league. I wonder if there's something like that in the future, if we see this is where the money is. So let's merge some of these things together. Let's stop competing with this Golden Trail thing and this golden ticket thing and all this, and let's come together and make a big league with a season. It still may not get the Jim Walmsleys of the world because they want to stick to the 100, but I wonder if that's the path.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I love that we can have these races exist that are in that 26K to trail marathon distance.
Yeah.
And the people are fascinating. I mean, there's some really cool characters out there, right? I mean, the distance is shorter, so you get the elite East Africans coming in. You get some of the the VK vert specialists like Remy that we mentioned, who set the Pikes Peak ascent course record. Mm-hmm. You've got Eli and his wife Tabor Hemming that do it from the American side. So we do have the American names that fight for wins, fight for podiums. Definitely are in the top 10. Definitely within the top 30 for the qualification standard. So I mean, we definitely have the American presence within the series. You just got to take off that kind of American trail bias and thinking that it's got to be produced by America or owned, at the top results by Americans. Because, yeah, I mean, the guy who had the victory at Mammoth with the controversial finish, I believe he's a Moroccan runner, Alocine, and his nickname is the Flying Camel. Like, how cool is that, right? And it makes sense because when this guy peaked out at 11,000 feet, he immediately goes into almost this jumping, bounding stride. I mean, the athleticism of the stride that he was taking on this straight down vertical section. I mean, it was insane. So, I mean, yeah, it's a very entertaining series to watch.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Like, I think of, as I've done the deeper dive lately into Diamond League, there's probably other leagues. I don't know enough about that whole realm yet to know, like, what are the feeder leagues into that. But there's one league. Noah Lyles is in Diamond League.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's not, well, maybe this year I want to do this thing and it's over there. So track and field feels, I don't want to say centralized because I think that has some negative connotations, but it allows aspiring runners or aspiring people in that space to be single-minded in what it means to be the best in the world. Right now, it's so heavily debated in trail. Well, if you win UTMB, does that make you the best this year? If you win Western States, does that make you the best? Because there's no obvious agreed upon, even sanctioned maybe. And I get also the charm of trail running is that it's none of these things. But if I'm just thinking from the competitive standpoint, I want to crown the best this year. I want to crown the trail runner of the year and it not be I don't know how to say it kindly, biased or, driven by other factors other than maybe what I would like for them to be. There's some objectivity of, well, Diamond League, Noah Lyles wins the 100 meters. He's the fastest person in the world. It's more objective. It's cleaner. And we're lacking that for better, for worse. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. So now that I'm more familiar with this and more aware of the accomplishments and the athleticism, we have now Free Trail doing the Trail Runner of the Year award, which I believe is distance agnostic, as they put it, right? So It doesn't have to be ultra. And it's certainly something that if you're on the Golden Trail World Series, you're, eligible to be voted for. So it'll be interesting because that's where you kind of tell on yourself is how do you look at the Golden Trail World Series and their athletes?
Right.
Because if you vote them, and the champion of the Golden Trail World Series gets 5th on your list over some people, right? Then obviously that just shows you it's not distance agnostic because it is, I guess, because you're eligible. Anybody's eligible for the award, but your bias is still weighing a win in the 100-mile events much higher than what the Golden Trail World Series does.
Yes, and now that you, even as we're saying it, who else does it? Ultra Runner magazine has one, and Free Trail has one, and and they could all be different, unless it seems like should be Tara Dower this year.
Well, so that's the problem that I've always pointed out is it's laughable to try and create an award for the trail runner, and you've got to have the Golden Trail World Series champion who's running, like we've talked about, 26K to a trail marathon, all the way up to a performance like Tara Dower, which was over the course of 50 days, right? Right. So that's why we need more centralization and specialized awards, right? We need to have different categories to be able to make logical conclusions and really allow, it does the athletes a disservice because somebody like Tara should receive some type of an award as the best X that can build her career legacy, whereas somebody with the Golden Trail Series should also be able to win some type of award and be compared against people he's truly competing against. It makes no sense to compare those two.
Yeah, the Trail Runner of the Year discussion, it is equal parts popularity contest with, I don't know. So maybe that's the cynical side, and then the generous side is they've done something that's really admirable or big. Let's say Tara Dower, but then it feels almost like ESPN's Sports Person of the Year award. It's like, okay, what we're doing when we're saying that is like we're throwing football, baseball, basketball. We're throwing the 25K, we're throwing the 50K, and we're throwing the 100-miler, and we're throwing the 40-day race. We're playing a 6-day stage race. Whoever's done the best in all those, you get to be our number one. And I get it. Like, there's no time to do awards for all of those. But to bring it to the Golden Trail World Series, I think you're exactly right. Does the person who wins that this year or won it last year, where was Sophia Lockley in the top 10 women of 2023? That tells you the credence that we give to Golden Trail today.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, because you have, I mean, there's so many factors that if you were a voter, you would have to weigh in and consider and weight, create your own scale on what's worth more, right? Like they're going to be able to race more because the recovery for these races are a lot quicker than Courtney trying to recover from the races. But again, then the field competition depth of talent is much deeper at the Golden Trail World Series, than in other races. And that's what's kind of cool about the Golden Trail World Series too, just real quick, is like it throws out all of the skill sets that aren't internal or aren't athletic, I should say, about ultra running and hundreds, right? Like what makes the 100 awesome is that you're tackling fueling strategies and hydration problems. Well, that's not a feat of athleticism to me. You're like, it's a feat you can train, right? Sure. But it's not athleticism.
Right.
You're tackling adverse weather conditions over the course of 15 hours to 24 hours, right? Like, so you've got changing weather conditions and gear and all these other things that really are existing outside of athleticism. Golden Trail World Series, the races are short enough to where fueling, not that big of a deal, right? Like it's like a road marathon. Like, yeah, you've got to practice it, but like it's not something that can't be done. And so it's purely just athleticism, and how fit you are for that race course profile on that day. That's
a really good point.
Yeah.
There's a sweet spot in distance that proves athleticism. And then the endurance stuff proves athleticism plus strategy plus discipline to carry out that strategy. I'm not saying discipline and strategy for when you don't have to worry about food, but when you're thinking about food, you're thinking about rest, and you're going 40 days. That's a whole different ball game. So Free Trail said that Sophia Lockley was number 3. So she wins last year, Golden Trail. Okay. And then she was number 3 alongside Zach Miller. So Zach Miller and Sophia were the number 3 runners of the year last year.
So where was Remy? Is that list? Do you still have that up or no?
Yes. Let me take a look here.
It's just curious to see how it translates on the men's side. If Remy, who won the Golden Trail World Series and also had an impressive year with, I think 23 was the year that he accomplished everything at Pikes Peak.
Okay. Let's see. They gave him second. He's second good. Alongside Katie. All right. So that says something. But you also say that is Pikes Peak one of the Golden Trail?
It was, yeah. So I don't believe it was this year. Okay. It was Headlands and Mammoth Trail Fest.
Okay. So yeah, I mean there it is. I think that's a really good metric you came up with to see where do they fit in. Now they're not number 1, but top 3 feels like it's getting some of the credence it deserves.
Yeah. So I mean that's good. Yeah. No, I mean definitely hats off to the voters or who it was that placed them there, because that definitely seems like appropriate placements for the type of season they had on that series. And Remy beating and taking down the course record for the Pikes Peak Ascent was just one of those ones that Killian had gone and tried to do. A host of others have tried to do it, and they weren't even close. They were 10 minutes off of where the record was at.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I think am I crazy? Is the Golden Trail World Series final like next week?
It is, yeah. So that's what's kind of cool too, is that like they keep the final destination secret, and then again they build excitement to like where's the finale going to be. They just announced it, so now it's still an open competition. So just because you're outside of the top 30 doesn't mean you can't pay your own way in to then try to have a strong enough placement to get you inside of that top 30. So yeah, it'll be pretty cool to see, where everything shakes out, just knowing what's at stake there as far as having the financial supporting and entry into the events the next year.
Do you know where it's at off the top of your head?
I don't know. I had it, but I forgot to write it down.
I'm gonna check here. I mean, okay, so let's hit the high level to review here. The Golden Trail World Series has a point system. There's 8 races, 30. I mean, it feels like lots more runners are available, but they favor the top 30. We put it that way. They're paying for them. Like, this is
right.
There's lots of prize money. I think the overall purse I saw was like $300,000 spread across the season. So they're getting paid to win these races. They're getting probably paid more to win the whole series.
I think $300,000 is for the championship, the grand finale. And then they have smaller prize purses at each event. I could be wrong, but I thought that's the way that I understood it.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead. So yeah, the point feeder system, the 8 events, right?
Yeah. Let's see. What are some of the other high levels? What are the high level takeaways here?
Well, again, I think it's great because it is a true global event, right? So I mentioned at the beginning the countries that have host races. So, I mean, that's a super, I think, unique aspect, again, because we're kind of biased in the United States, right? Like, it's either here in North America, or it's UTMB, or it's really probably not on the radar, basically. Yeah. So it exposes you some pretty cool different courses. Yeah, I mean, and then I love the fact that the distance creates an easier recovery for the men and women. So, like, you'll even have sometimes like Remy. He ran the VK, I think, on Friday, and then came back on Sunday and ran the 26K. So there's probably some consequence to that he sacrificed in his 26K result. But I mean, it's pretty cool how quickly these athletes can turn around and be 100% and ready to go again.
Yeah, we get to see our favorite athletes that we mention all the time, a couple times a year. And so when you go to these shorter distances with this, you're going to get to see, like, say you start to pick a favorite, and maybe my dream will come true and they create jerseys for them. And you wear that jersey, you get to see that person go at it 8 times at least that year.
Yeah.
Okay. The final is, I don't even know how to pronounce this. Ascona Locarno. Have you ever heard of that?
No. What is that? Italy, or what was the?
It seems Italian. I'm going to look it up. Ascona Locarno.
So the other thing that they've created too that complements the series is just the content. Just to go back to that, when you go on their Instagram or anywhere else, I guess on social media, but mainly Instagram, the highlight package that they put together for these races, 5 days after they've been completed. Mm-hmm. So they do the live stream with live commentary, and then they put together this 15 to 20 minute recap of the Mammoth, Trail Fest 26K. And I mean, it's exactly what we were talking about. It's like, this is what we would love to see, post Western States 5 days later, 20-minute highlight packet. And it's, incredible production. It's something that you can share quickly with your friends. It's easy to consume. And then it they tell the story. So then they take the top 10, they reshuffle the leaderboard, and then they build excitement going into the next event. Yeah. All right, are these characters going to come back? Philemon going to get revenge on Alacine after that controversial finish? They just know how to present the sport, tell the story, to complete, to have a full through line from one event to the next. It's awesome. And then
it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing everything right. It seems like there is a big adoption and big audience for this in Europe, because they've partnered, and I think they have Golden Trail Series TV now. So it's actually going to be broadcast on Eurosport. So it's a unique, I don't know have any idea about how the business workings, do with broadcast TV, but I think they're paying for the actual broadcast time. So they're forking the money over to, again, reach the non-running audience there,
Yep.
you know, who are just sport fans of outdoorsmen's events.
Yep.
And so I can only imagine this is going to keep growing. Like they're
Yeah.
seemingly doing everything right with a product that's already polished and ready for a bigger spotlight. So it's cool.
Yeah, it feels like this is the way to do it. So that to back to my intro, it's been right under my nose for a while now, and I just, because I'm always, you know, thinking about what I want to think about, something new pops up, and I didn't even give it the time. But this is a brilliant model for even just how you just ended, for growing the sport, for testing to see if the sport works for non-participants in the sport, shorter races, better attention spans, much better post-race. I mean, it feels brilliant. And this Ascona Locarno, yes, is northern Italy. Looks like it's right on the Swiss border. It looks like a 7-hour train ride from where I am right now. So who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go watch it.
Right. And I think, Josh, it's okay to have your Salt Lake City jersey next to a Moroccan or Kenyan jersey
Totally.
from the Golden Trail Series. I think much like how U.S. fans of soccer embrace their local MLS club, but then also have maybe a Champions League or La Liga team, or they've got their Messi jersey. You know, I think we can put a foot in both buckets there and be authentic fans of our local American runners, but also, you know, really fan out on this Golden Trail World Series.
Yeah, I mean, if we knew better, you know, we could have had done like a Golden Trail Series final like episode. You know, maybe that's where this is going, where we can do stuff like that. We can celebrate this stuff, keep all, like for what I'm doing at Borderlands, the heart of trail running, like the good feelings. To be clear, that finish was the heart of trail running to me. I don't think the heart of trail running just means the mid back of the pack who are all in it for the soul. To me, like that desire to win was a soul heart moment that I fully resonate with. And, you know, I want to learn more about the 1500. I want to do more with the Diamond League stuff. Like, I just want to celebrate running in general, even though my heart and my foundation is in trail. Like, just to be turned on to this stuff is really cool. And to be turned on to it in real time and seeing this happen and knowing that, you know, if I want to wear the jersey of something, like that's possible. And I'm looking for that. So that's cool.
Totally. And yeah, it'll be fascinating to hear the feedback, you know, from the Americans that listen. Just, you know, I could be completely wrong, and there could be a huge adoption rate, and people could be, you know, talking about how they've been passionate fans of this for years. You know,
Yeah,
I just
this could
think
be
that
just me and you both being equally as, you know, dumb.
Right, exactly. So let us know. I definitely know the European audience, you know, has been fully aware of this. This is, you know, where some of their trail heroes compete, and yeah, they are very passionate about it, you know, so hopefully we can come alongside them and, you know, not ruin something. You know, America's unfortunately had a reputation of taking something that another country's already done and redo it just a little bit worse.
Yeah,
like
it's exactly like Apple and Samsung. Samsung will have a feature. They've had it on their phone for years. Apple releases it like it's never been done before.
Yeah,
we could do that way. That's fine.
Right. So I am definitely paying homage and respect to all the European
those who've gone
runners and
before
fans.
us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do this again soon.
All right, buddy.
All right, man. Take care.